In last Friday's session, we touched upon how does BAASS do work from home for themselves, and we summarized it into 5 major areas. We talked about hardware, so using laptops for the mobile workforce, file share, so we used a cloud-based file share tool. We use Microsoft Teams, and we don't use file servers at the office. Communications tools, we use Microsoft Teams for that, GoToMeeting and a VoIP system for our phones, Sage and CRM, so how do we access our ERP via the internet? How do we cloud enable that? And then the security around those same items. So obviously last week, part of that was we use the same tools that we sell, including our BAASS cloud, to host the Sage 300 and Sage CRM that BAASS uses. So the follow-up to last week's session is this session, where we're looking to dedicate 30 minutes to look at, what is BAASS Cloud, hosting of Sage 300 via the internet, and to answer some of the most common questions that I'm asked by companies who reach out and are looking for more information. If you have any questions during this session, I would request, please put them in the chat window. We'll take them at the end. I have a section at the end where I'm answering a bunch of questions already, or the most common questions. I'll ask Remington, our moderator, to send over any questions that you enter in as well that are not already on my list to answer. And with that, let me start with who am I? My name is Jamie Smith. I am the president of Linetco Computer Networks, Inc. We are the IT division for BAASS. We do the infrastructure and IT for BAASS themselves, as well as a full-blown MSP and IT service company here in Ontario. So we do local IT support for networks, infrastructure, and companies here, but we also do support for cloud-based solutions coast to coast, as well as for BAASS, and of course, to the point here, for our BAASS cloud solution. Now, when we talked about that work from home, and again, we said hardware, file shares, communication tools, security, and ERP, the one there that we're talking about distilling down here today is that work from home in the Sage 300. So today's focus is on hosted Sage 300 in the BAASS cloud. What does it mean, and how do we get into our Sage 300 via the web? BAASS does a private cloud hosted offering for Sage 300. It's private cloud. You do not need servers at all for this. We take your Sage 300 software and licensing and your Sage 300 data. We move it to the servers in our colocation facility where we manage them. We turnkey the service, support, and delivery of those applications out to you. You still use your current IT staff for all other support items for your network and computers. So you don't need us for any of that, but we do everything for the Sage 300 portion and deliver it down to you. You don't have to worry about on the Sage 300 side, the server hardware maintenance and upgrades, the server licensing, that can come with Microsoft licensing audits for that sort of an item, the bills from IT and consultants to fix your IT or fix your servers or support your servers or do the backups and business continuity for your servers that have Sage 300. And you don't have to worry about items or the concerns of things like ransomware. We turnkey all the solutions wrapped around those into one solution and one fee that we call BAASS Cloud. And we deliver that so that you can access that from anywhere that you've got a computer with an internet connection so that you can work from your office or work from home. How does it work? It's really very simple. This is not overly complicated. You get an icon on your desktop that is a link to our private hosted BAASS Cloud environment. When you double click on that icon installed on your desktop, the technology, there's a prompt here for the login. The technology that we use is Microsoft Remote Desktop Services. Double click on the icon, fires up the connection. It uses Microsoft Remote Desktop Services. This is just an extension. Microsoft Remote Desktop Services is just an extension of Windows Server technology. Many of you may have already used this sort of thing. Maybe you're already using it now, or you've used it historically and used it using some of the old names that it was referred to, like Terminal Server or Remote Desktop. services, or RDP. Microsoft defines it out as giving your users a full desktop experience with a variety of applications that you install and manage. All this really means is that if we establish the fact that you've got a computer and internet connection, we put an icon on your desktop that allows you to connect into a server where those applications are installed and they're delivered that way from the server. So back to that RDS connection, what does it really mean? You double click on the BAASS cloud, pops open, you say, would you like to connect? And when it does connect, you're presented with this. It's really that simple. It's this is a screenshot of a desktop within a desktop. You can see the connection appears to be a desktop here. Inside of that, we are now going to have applications for Microsoft Office. So you can use Word, you can use Excel. We're going to have file shares there for you. So typically those are just for the finance group. If you're putting your ERP here, you would also put a file share there for the finance group to be able to share files securely and safely. So that's outside of your network. And through this, it connects your printers. So you've got access to your local printers to be able to print down to your local machines for things that you need, or local printers that you need to print. And obviously the real key here is once you get into that remote desktop session, what do you really want to have access to? You want to have access into your Sage 300. So it is installed in that session as well. You double click on the Sage 300 icon, just as if it was installed in your local machine, except now it's in this desktop, this virtual desktop. The login looks exactly the same. The exact same way that you did it at your own office is how it would be done here. You put in your username, you put in your password, and from the drop-down list, you select from the drop-down whatever the company is that you're trying to log in, should you have multiple instances or multiple databases are there within Sage 300. Once you do that and you get into the Sage 300, it looks exactly like normal Sage 300 does. You are now working in Sage 300 via remote desktop services, just as if you were at your own office. You have all the modules that you had there. You have all the third-party add-ons that you would have had there. You're going to be printing to your local computer or local network and local printers. If you have multiple companies and databases, you've got those. All we've done is take your software and your data and put it in servers in our colocation that we manage, and you can now access that from anywhere. This is the perfect scenario when we've got companies that have multiple offices. So any office needs to get into the same Sage 300 ERP. If you've got a desire to remove hardware with IT support so that you can just focus on what it is that your business does as a vertical. Or if you're looking for an easy way to add or remove users without having to add on-premise hardware licensing, etc. Or in the session, the current environment that's happening, it's work from home. Everybody's talking about how do I work from home, enable my people, how do I get that Sage 300 access? So we're delivering all of that out, and from that work from home, everybody now wants that ability. What's happened has changed now how we think and how we need to do business. And most companies, while they want to do something like work from home previously, for whatever reason, they just didn't execute and implement on it. Now, with what's currently happened, companies who have this already in place, they didn't miss a beat. They continue to work from home without an issue. But companies that don't have that sort of thing in place, they're really trying to investigate every option and every avenue, because we don't know how long the environment situation is going to happen and continue, and everybody's going to need access into their Sage 300. And it is not too late to change that. If you don't have something that is easily accessible, it's not too late to change that. You can do that anytime. For the BAASS Cloud, it's an option for you for Sage 300 hosting. You already use BAASS for your Sage 300 support. Having BAASS also host the Sage 300, it offers a very tight integration for both the ERP and the IT technical support teams to operate as one point of contact and one point of delivery. So there's no change at your office or the requirement at your office if you decide to go with something like BAASS Cloud. All you need is your computer and an internet connection. And how do we do this? Again, BAASS Cloud uses the Microsoft Remote Desktop Services to provide you with access to the Sage 300 software and data. This is the exact same way that BAASS and Lineco use it and access it ourselves. And we have customers ranging in size from 3 to 70. If we get just up over 70 is our largest Sage 300 hosting customer. And it's very scalable. If you wanted to, it doesn't, any size that you are today, it can scale up or it can scale down, and it is not vertical specific. We do hosting for not-for-profits, we do them for associations, we do it for distribution, we do it for many different verticals. So it's really agnostic, and they all work. None of it, none of it's a difficulty. We're just taking your Sage 300 and putting it in our hosting facility. Now, once people start looking at something like this, they really start coming up with certain, and they start engaging with me about certain and specific questions. Most of these questions I find can really be put into these groups or buckets. They can be grouped under something like deployment, such as, hey, how quickly can something like this be done, execute on a project like this? Or security, can you block it so that only my office can connect to my data? That sort of an item. Support, who do I call when I have Sage 300 support? Do I call you, Lineco? Do I call BAASS? Scalability, if I want to reduce my user count, can I? If I want to add to my user count, can I? And the resiliency, which I would consider I use the word resiliency, but it's the business continuity and the infrastructure, how strong is this thing? Where is the data hosted? Those types of questions. So what I've done is I have I've got 26 questions here. They're the most common questions that I am often asked. I call it questions A to Z, and I've categorized them by each one of these buckets for groups, and I'm going to go through them now. Okay, so anybody who has an additional question, please put it into the chat. Remington will send it back over to me. I will try to add it into these, and I'm going to just start into my list of Q&A for this on the most commonly asked questions. So under deployment, I'm often asked, how quickly can this be set up? This is very rapid. Anybody who wants to do this, the implementation of a hosting instance is very quick to deploy. From the time that somebody says, yeah, I want to have this, generally speaking, within 3 to 4 days, we have this instant up and running. It is very rare that somebody actually wants it that fast, because you're usually dealing with an engagement for something else that has to do with, BAASS for the project, which comes to the next question, which is, who installs the Sage 300? That is BAASS Business Solutions. So we implement the infrastructure and host. BAASS comes in and installs the Sage 300, taking your software and licensing and your data, installs it, and then we lock it down where we then deliver it out to you. I'm asked when it's time to do an upgrade, how is this done? Upgrades are very easy. Normally what we would do is we would create a second instance in a 30-day overlap period, and BAASS would then install the Sage 300 of the next version, copy your data over, copy the forms over, do the conversion, and you would even do some testing yourself, and you would have both environments accessible to you at both times. And then when it's time to flip the switch, we turn off access one night to the old version, and you're now using the net new version. So upgrades are very easy to do. I get asked, what about user acceptance testing in development environments? Back on that same vein of the upgrade, yes. We can create second instances of servers so that you can do that. Normally that's for larger companies. We're talking, 15 to 25 users plus. They say, hey, we have certain things in third-party applications and development that we want to test. Can we do that sort of thing in your environment? Absolutely. We can spin up another environment very quickly, very easily, so that you can test these things before deploying them out. And we just embed that within the process and project that you're doing with BAASS and the engagement for that. And third-party apps. I mentioned earlier about the third-party apps. Yes, the third-party applications that you install. So, the core Sage 300 is very simple and easy on this hosting. BAASS installs the, whether it's GL, AP, AR, inventory control, order entry, purchase order, those kind of things. That's core. You start adding on Orchid EFT and Process Scheduler, third-party apps, Print Boss, items like that. Absolutely, that's very, very normal. We put those in. Those are delivered in the same, or HRMS, where we need a separate web server. just for that. Absolutely, we do that as well. So those third-party applications for sure can be brought into this. In licensing, I ask, hey, what licensing do I need to bring? The only thing we're using is your Sage 300 licensing. You bring your licensing in your data, and that's what we use. My group, we provide the server licensing, the security licensing, all the infrastructure costs. It's all turnkey into whatever that price is. Everything is delivered for that. And even the Microsoft Office, I'm asked, hey, what about Microsoft Office licensing? In the hosted instance, we provide that Office licensing on the server. And there are cases, customers, we want to look to see, where's the most effective use of dollars in this. If you're using something like Office 365, there are licensing versions within Office 365 that are valid within this as well. And there are also eOpen licensing versions for Microsoft Office that we can take the licensing and bring it into this as well. So, we will work with you and take a look at those with you, but we can provide all the licensing, but if you have something that's valid, we want to bring that in to help reduce cost. Again, can I add non-Sage 300 users? If I have people that I just want to be able to get into secure file shares through the finance group, absolutely. They don't have to be a Sage 300 user. It's the most common use. But if you wanted somebody to get into it, absolutely. We can add additional users in that don't have access into the ERP. When it comes to the environment configuration, hey, we're asked these technical questions about what needs to be done to have the Sage 300 and perhaps these third-party applications work. Who takes care of that? Well, as soon as it becomes hosted, that's our job to vet that out for you. Our Lineco and ERP technical teams work together to come up with and looking through the requirements from those vendors so that you don't have to just take a document that's passed from BAASS or from a vendor to your IT team, say, hey, figure this out to find out what's needed for the upgrade. No, we design all of that for you. We have templates for most of it. And we can always work on exception basis as well, but the point there is that we take care of that and design that for you. What about the service packs and things? Sage 300 updates and service packs, BAASS installs those. If you have a customer care membership agreement with BAASS, all those service packs for the service pack installation, that's included within this. If you don't have one of those and you're just doing things time and materials with BAASS, but you're still using them for support, absolutely, as needed, they would, and as requested, service packs, they install all of those for you. My team just does the infrastructure. And when is it most common to see companies move to something like BAASS Cloud for Sage 300 hosting? So there are really common triggers that we see this. The first one is, and time when we see people do this, is at upgrade time. So when people are doing Sage 300 upgrades and they have to change infrastructure or hardware because of it, that's when they start investigating whether it's better off just to put it into our hosted solution for BAASS Cloud. Or if they've had hardware failure or hardware refresh that they need to do, is it better to do that or just put it into the hosting and compare those two? Also, we see this as well. When people have been hit with ransomware and they decide that they just don't want to go through this anymore and they don't want to have the risk and the exposure and they want to have a turnkey solution that can help protect them against that sort of a thing, they look at using something like the BAASS Cloud. And last but not least, startups and brand new companies. More and more we're seeing these startups, they just don't want to have infrastructure and hardware anymore. They want everything cloud-based, and they have no vested interest in the history, so they just go straight to hosted solution, and BAASS Cloud is a perfect example of something that would work for them. That's it for deployment on the security side of it, and a group of questions that I've got on the security side of it. What is the physical location like that you've got this sort of thing in? Hey, I've got another subsequent slide to this where I'll actually show you a picture of the colocation facility. This is not at the BAASS offices or anything like that. This is a professional tier 3 colocation facility. Tiers for colos, they go 1, 2, 3. It's not 3, 2, 1. So 3 is higher than 1. So it's a professional tier 3 facility. It's in Mississauga. And again, as I said, I will give a picture of that after this and a brief overview of the facility itself. For firewalls and for the secure access, we use multiple enterprise-grade firewalls clustered in a failover together. So if any one of them were to fail, everybody continues on to work on through the next one. All the hardware on the infrastructure and LAN side of it, switches, etc., are crisscrossed and failed in a failover. On the firewalls themselves, we blacklist all access so nobody can get in. We only allow explicit access via whitelist. So your instance and your unique server that is set up just for you, when that is set up, we get the IPs from your office and we whitelist them so that you're able to remote in. Anywhere outside of that, you can't get in. And we geo-block all kind of traffic outside of North America just as an extra precaution. So what we do is a blacklist everything and only whitelist what we want to do. That's the ruling that we do on that. For security software on these servers, we put in managed security software, anti-malware, and antivirus software on each. We put in web content filtering software on every server so that they can't go out to websites that are known bad websites. We install Windows patch management and security in an automated fashion. We do that every week. So you've heard of Microsoft Patch Tuesdays when they release all of their patches. That week we install all the updates and we install. So those are the security portions to prevent. We also have a security software that is in the event of breach. Why? Because in this day and age, you can't just have, I'm going to put in all these solutions just to prevent. No, you have to have a plan for if something were to happen, what do you do? So we have managed detection and response software on these servers as well that provides us auditing and is designed so that if suspicious behavior happens, lock the server down, as well as allowing us to go back and audit it to see what exactly were to happen, so that if you want to know what the heck happened, we'd be able to do that. And this is security software where this, developed by the infrastructure or IT support teams that worked at the NSA. Board members are, former deputy director of the NSA and former Department of Homeland Security in the US, these North American-based companies that really take security serious. That's what's installed on the servers that we have in the BAASS cloud. And we lock these servers down. People ask me, well, what do you do for the end user? When you remote into it, you're able to get into it. You're able to use the applications that are there. You're able to do data entry and everything in your Sage-300, but you're not able to install applications or change anything on the server itself. We lock it down so that end users don't have that ability, continuing to tighten that down so that, we're trying to close up as many holes as possible and where things could leak in. And then even for ourselves, we use a secure password management tool that your server, any instance, any customer, they're all unique, and each one has unique passwords, and each password changes every day. So even my group doesn't have the password from day to day to day. We have to use the password management tools, and we can audit back to see who used those tools to log into that server and when. So again, so we can audit and have look back at what's happened there. And of course, part of that is we have to have that. Part of that is the breach plan, and that is the resiliency. So we have to have a, not plan to prevent, but plan to prevent plus plan, well, if something were to happen, what is the plan? We've got that plan in place so that if something were to happen, we're able to get this over into the resiliency portion of the question, which is business continuity and failover, offsite backups and things like that. So this is where I'm asked, hey, you've locked down the server. What if I want to access it from outside of my office? And absolutely we can. We provide a two-factor authentication tool that allows you to work from anywhere, such as work from home, so that not only are we whitelisting it from your office, but you and your company with specific access just to your server, if you have another two-factor method we provide to you, you can go and work from home or a hotel or wherever it is. Yes, we do. And again, that's not just from that office, but from outside of the office. And again, you're not sharing these environments with anybody. Everyone is spun up and is unique to each customer. That's it for the security. On the support side of it, really this boils down to the two most common questions. Who do I call for support and when? And the line that is drawn there is very, fairly specific. It's anything that has to do with Sage 300, that you would normally call BAASS for, you continue to call BAASS for. But anything to do with connectivity, printing, If you had a folder access, such as, you've got that finance share, and then with that, you've got, shared financial documents, etc. But you've also got an HR folder that you say you only want 2 specific users to have access to, you would come to us. That's infrastructure support. That is the server support. So connectivity, printing, etc. Contact Linetco. ERP support, how to, what are you using, training, adding on modules in Sage 300, that definitely goes to BAASS. But at worst, you can always call into our support desk, and as soon as we determine that's actually not an IT thing, we'll get that escalated over and transferred over to the BAASS group. That's part of the beauty of working with this, with us, is that it's both sides are all in one location. Scalability. I touched on this earlier. People want to know, hey, look, as my business grows, is this easy to increase? Absolutely. We can absolutely add net new users. We can absolutely add servers to the environment. We can add plugins. We can add in third parties, accessibility, etc. So if you want to add users at any time, it's not a problem. If you want to reduce users at any time, it's not a problem. If you need to add because of whatever growth or third-party add-on, that is easy to do as well. And on the resiliency portion, this is really the business continuity, and backup is what you might call it. Here's where people ask me items like, where's my data? As I said earlier, I'll do another slide on the physical colo itself, but all of the data stays within Canada. The colocation facility is in Mississauga. All the business continuity and failover locations are also within Canada. So everything stays here within Canada. For the backups, we use an independent solution for our backups versus the hardware that we have. So the servers are one piece, the business continuity is a completely separate piece, a completely separate vendor, a completely separate set of passwords. And we do that separation to make sure in the event, again, that one area potentially has an issue, that it doesn't, we're trying to hedge our bets against encroachment into another area. So the backup solution, we do backups every 2 hours. We keep 14 days worth of backups locally. We have those saved onto separate infrastructure and hardware. That separate infrastructure and hardware every night sends that data offsite, where it keeps the last 2 weeks, the last 4 weeklies, and the last 12 monthlies. And that offsite location is in Markham. So a completely different co-location facility to have that offsite. And then that facility nightly sends the last 90 days worth of backups out to Alberta. So we've got the data, backups, everything in the Markham co-location facility. We have nightly offsites to the Markham location, and then we have nightly transfers the last 90 days of backups and kept in retention in Alberta to give us some geo redundancy. Again, this is enterprise class business continuity. As I just said on the hardware, it is separate from the backup. What we use is scale hyperconvergent clustering hardware from IBM Lenovo. I mean, what does that really mean? All that means is that there are multiple physical servers with the data spread across them, so that if in the event that any one physical server were to die, the other servers can continue running it without missing a beat. There is always more than enough horsepower spread across them with an equal amount available to spread that load across everything. So we're hedging our bets against physical failure on hardware to keep you in that uptime happening. Because the only thing that I'm really selling to you here is uptime and end user experience being usability. What is the speed that people are able to use this at? And those things have to be good. That is what you're going to measure me on this. And this is how we protect ourselves from having those separations in hardware and backup and business continuity. This is how we protect ourselves from things like ransomware. Putting these little areas, separating them, and having plans in place for breach planning. In the event that this happens, this is the step we do. In the event that that happens, this is the step that we do, so that we can keep all of these things available and ready for you. And these are the same things that help and protect us against things such as hacking. Having that breach plan and security first approach prevents, these are the bricks that we're putting in against things like hacking and ransomware. And then, on that same vein of breach planning, it's not just us, you yourselves for your on-prem should have something in place, something like an information systems management policy. That's just a fancy way of saying, hey, do you have, you know, IT security policies in place? If you haven't been asked for them as of yet, you should probably plan that you will be. We're seeing more and more of our customers being asked for specifically information system management policies. All these are just documents that vendors and customers are asking the businesses that they do business with, hey, we're being asked because we're doing cyber security insurance policy, et cetera. Can you fill out this form? Because they're asking us to make sure that the companies that we do direct business with have these things in place, and can you check these out? So this is something that if you put your data in the BAASS cloud, we can check those boxes off for you. But you should also try to, go back to your own office and start taking a look at that yourself. What do you have in place or not have in place? In, the past all of these, that's the majority of the questions that I am receiving, that style, that people want to know, hey, what is the cost? What is the cost of something like this for me? It does vary based upon what modules, what third-party applications you can be putting in, but in its most basic form, if you were a 3 to 5 user Sage 300 using company, it's about $600 for the basic server and about $63 per user. That formula is a very good general rule of thumb. It could be a little bit less, yes. Could it be a little bit more? It could be. But if you're GLA, PIR, ICO, EPO, print boss, payroll, things like that, that's all very common stuff. There's nothing crazy there. That you should be able to fit all into this with no issue in that price range. All right. So with that, as I had said, I wanted to show to you a picture of the colocation facility itself. And again, I said I would try to keep this, 30 to 35 minutes. I'm crossing that line a little bit right now. Went through those questions here that were added in. This is an actual picture of the colocation facility in Mississauga that the data is hosted in the primary location. As you can see, where it's self-contained single-story building with a hardened perimeter and a 10-foot welded fence. They've got redundancies with tier 3 attributes. They have no single point of failure for any critical system within it. This means power. They have 2 independent power locations coming in. So our servers all have multiple power supply units on them, one plugged into power A and one plugged into power B. So either one of those could go out, and all of our stuff, including the switches and firewalls, all have the same thing. Internet connections, multiple fiber internet connections coming in, both failing over again. Fire suppression, 24/7 security and closed circuit TV, biometric scanning for me to get in, and I got to use my thumb and a swipe card to be even just to get through the man trap to get into this place. So this is the data itself is really, it's at a very secure colocation facility. And that kind of wraps up what I've got on the BAASS cloud, and I'm hoping I was able to answer the general questions that you have there. In a quick recap, last week we had talked about what do you do for these areas for your Sage 300? Hey, if you can get it hosted and delivered by the internet, if your file shares, you can do it with a cloud-based file share like Office 365. For your communication tools, like use something like GoToMeeting or Teams or Zoom, use a VoIP PBX. Don't forget security on that. And today's 30-minute quick wrap-up session was really just about the BAASS cloud and our hosted Sage 300 offering. And I'm hoping that I got everything answered that you could potentially have as questions on that, and I didn't miss anything that came in the pop-up. But for those of you who didn't put any of these questions, anything else that you did want to have answered, it's not too late. You can put them in now, or when we end here today, you can email advisors@baass.com. You can go to www.baass.com/contact us. You can email me, jsmith@lineco.ca. And with that, I am concluding my session. I really appreciate everybody who took the time out here today to join me. I'm hoping it was of some value to someone out there. Thank you very much in Remington. This is the end of it for me, and I'm going to pass it back to you.
All right, thank you, Jamie. So with that being said, I'd just like to thank everyone again for taking time out of their busy days to attend, as well as Jamie for presenting today. A form will appear on your screen once the webinar has concluded, where you can enter any more additional questions. This form will also be available in the email sent out with the webinar recording. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday.
Thank you, Remington. Bye-bye.